Today on No Pulp, the biggest game, the most anticipated one in the nation, Michigan crushed Ohio State 45-23. We'll tell you all about how the Wolverines dominated the second half.
Well, because of that result in Columbus, Ohio State fans became Notre Dame fans. But unfortunately for the Buckeyes, the Leprechauns let Brutus and everybody else down over in LA.
So we'll tell you if USC has a chance at the playoff. John Eads hops into the juicer with a guy that might be our boss in a couple of days. We'll talk college basketball, Feast Week, winners, losers, and so much more. It's No Pulp, and it starts right now.
Winning the Golden Spikes. Sonny DeShero from Auburn. The freshmen never win. The freshmen never win championships.
Sharon May, you are an absolute square.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it goes. He hit it.
Wow, it is getting serious.
Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Bang!
All day life.
Welcome into the CitrusTV studios for a post-Thanksgiving No Pulp. With John Eads, I'm Ian Unsworth. John, a lot of things to talk about. We're jam-packed today, but I'll start here. What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Thanksgiving food. Someone asked me this the other day. Got to be mac and cheese. Added it to the slate this year. Loved it. How about you?
I'm a big sides guy, too. Stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes. You want to talk about mashings? How about Michigan, Ohio State? Our main dish today, the Wolverines rumbling over the Buckeyes in Columbus. A matchup of number 2 against number 3, the third-ranked Wolverines had no problem. They're headed to the Big Ten championship against Purdue. We got a lot to talk about with this one, but John, let's start here. What impressed you most about Jim Harbaugh's team?
What didn't impress me? I mean, everything that could have possibly gone right for Michigan went right in this game. But I think what impressed me most is the grit this team has. So Blake Corum, Michigan's leader offensively, the best running back in the Big Ten, as voted on as of late, did not play in this game. The sentiment coming in is that he would play. So Michigan had to find other ways to move the football, and they most certainly did, courtesy of J.J. McCarthy. That passing game that nobody thought was a thing all season long finally came to fruition. Here you go. Michigan had 5 touchdowns of plays of 45 or more yards. 4 of those for 69 or more yards. So the explosive plays, Ohio State had 0 answers for. They brought in that new shiny defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. The defense was even worse because this team is not physical.
Both of these teams had some big-time plays. On the Ohio State side, people are calling for Ryan Day's head. I don't know if you want to go that far, guys. Let's slow down a little bit. There were some coaching blunders in this game. OSU blew a fake punt that would have given them a first down and plenty more. You had a 4th and 6 play where instead of going for it, Ohio State had the momentum. C.J. Stroud, potential Heisman candidate, wanted to go for it. Ryan Day said, nah, let's punt. You mentioned Jim Knowles. Went out to stop the run, a guy that was hired for his physicality, his style of defense that sells out. And then Michigan runs the ball for 252 yards.
That defense was a lot of things.
There are a lot of problems.
Physical.
A lot of problems in Columbus. But here's the thing. This isn't an Ohio State failure. This is a Michigan success. The reason this game was won, Jim Harbaugh had a 4-quarter game plan. J.J. McCarthy said it post-game. You come out, you throw the ball. You open up that Ohio State defense that is blitzing, and then you lean on them. You start running the ball. J.J. McCarthy takes some carries, and you break that crowd. There was some tension by the second quarter. By the fourth, Buckeye Stadium, empty.
28-3 in the second half. That's how you win a football game. That's Jim Harbaugh, Michigan football in 2022. That's how it's going to be for the rest of his tenure at Michigan. So because of that loss that Ohio State had to Michigan in the game, well, the Buckeyes all became big Notre Dame fans for the contest later that day against USC. But didn't exactly go as planned. The Trojans pulled out 38-27 in LA, and now are in the driver's seat for a spot in the college football playoff.
And this is a game that sealed Caleb Williams as a Heisman contender. He's been in the back seat, I think, for the majority of the season, but Hendon Hooker tears his ACL. C.J. Stroud, as we just talked about, has some middling games. Caleb Williams comes to the forefront. The stat line wasn't all that great, but he was going up one of the best defenses that he's faced all year. Notre Dame always has a great front, and Williams avoided that pressure well. He got a lot of help from the run game, too. 204 net yards. I think the only thing you have to question with USC going forward is the secondary.
I'd agree, but this is most certainly a big win, and this is a team all year. I don't really care about the secondary, to be honest with you. That's won with its offense. Lincoln Riley brought his offensive system to this team in USC, and they've had a lot of success in year one, and Caleb Williams has a lot to do with that. He needs to be in New York City for the Heisman finalists in the top 4 because he has spearheaded this team all year, did the same thing at Oklahoma. He's the biggest reason why this squad is having success. success.
I mean, the favorites, the odds say that Caleb Williams will be there. I am a little worried about the secondary, though. Notre Dame's got a backup quarterback in Drew Pine, and the Irish threw for 318 yards with only Michael Mayer.
Score more points to win, though.
Yeah, you're playing from behind. We'll take it there. We've hit on 3 of the 5 playoff contenders. So what about some of the other people that are in the mix? We've got TCU at number 3. They got to win the Big 12 championship against Kansas State. It's not going to be easy, but they thrashed Iowa State last weekend. Alabama somehow is still in the picture. The Crimson Tide will always still be in the picture. LSU nowhere to be found after getting smacked by
let that happen?
By the worst Texas A&M team record-wise, talent-wise not so much, but a team that has dissipated over the past. Georgia's not going anywhere against a bad Georgia Tech team.
LSU, that situation is just ridiculous. You're at number 5. You've got an SEC title spot locked up, 2 losses. All you got to do really is win that title game, and you're into the playoff. You can't go to Texas A&M and play against Jimbo Fisher, a team that finished 5-7 this year,
awful offense,
and lose like that. That is absolutely ridiculous.
You're on your 3rd quarterback. You've got multiple players on both sides of the ball injured, suspended in the portal. And that A&M team, I think they just played it like it was their Super Bowl. You got nothing else to play for. You're not going to a bowl game, so why not rile up and beat Brian Kelly?
But the week before, they struggled to get past UMass,
the
Minutemen. So, I don't know, kind of polarizing. I don't really understand week to week what Texas A&M brings, but they certainly brought their game against LSU. And again, that's just an embarrassing loss. And then TCU impressive as well, winning by that margin without their best wide receiver, Quentin Johnson.
And TCU will face a backup quarterback in the championship game. Will Howard's probably starting for Kansas State. Adrian Martinez. Coming up on No Pulp, John is jumping in the juicer with Nick Luttrell to talk about what's ahead for college football. Stick around, you're going to want to hear what they have to say.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees?
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Welcome back to No Pulp. It's time to squeeze all we can out of a very special guest over here in the juicer with John Eads and our soon-to-be sports director, Nick Luttrell.
That's right.
I'm Ian Unsworth. Here's how it works. The first 3 questions worth 1 point, the final question worth 2. Nick, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And second of all, your Arkansas Razorbacks over the past couple of years have made a career out of starting strong, finishing slow. Can you hold up?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
We'll see how he starts.
I want a little confidence out of you. So I think we're going to give Jeeds the first crack at things.
After the first question, I'll be ready to go. I need to get in the feel of things, though.
All right, so
I'm telling you the first question, I don't know.
Let's pick it up. We're talking college football's future with the conference championships coming up this weekend. John, who has the best chance in all of CFB to pull off an upset?
Well, you still follow me on Twitter, right?
Duh.
Right? Okay, well, since the summer, I've been high on this Kansas State team. I said you should put down money on them to win the Big 12 this year. I think it was plus 1,500 odds at the time. You're going to be winning some money, too, because this is a team that played TCU in Fort Worth earlier this season. Had them on the ropes. 28-17 lead at the half, and that was without Adrian Martinez. He played 1 possession. Then Will Howard comes in. He leads 4 straight touchdown drives before he gets injured. Then this bum comes in, a third-string quarterback, and the offense just completely collapses. So I think with a fully healthy Kansas State team, a fully healthy Kansas State offense, they beat TCU in the championship game. Also, one more thing real quick. No turnovers, no penalties in that first matchup for Kansas State. So not a team that shoots itself in the foot. They're going to win that game.
Okay, I'm going SEC championship here. And hear me out, okay? It's no bias, I promise. LSU is at the top of the SEC West, the best division and the best conference in college football time and time again. And I know this is a team that lost Texas A&M on Saturday night, shattered their dreams of a college football playoff appearance. But I think that maybe can help them in a way. Now there's no shot at a college football playoff. They have a chance to win an SEC championship. I think they're going to be more motivated than any other team to take down a team in Georgia that everyone's saying Georgia is going to win. But I think LSU has a good shot at it.
Georgia's been shaky. Yes, they've been really shaky. They almost lost to Mizzou, almost lost to Kentucky. Yep. I mean, even Vandy gave them a little bit of a scare, but I can't pick an LSU team that just lost to A&M. I'm going with Kansas State.
That's fine.
I'm going with John's first pick. Some of these games might not make a dent nationally, but they'll keep us entertained with great offense. So, which of these teams are hitting it over, Nick? Which game of these conference championships will have the most points?
I think it's the ACC championship game. You got a team in UNC and Clemson. Both teams average over 34 points per game. Drake May for the Tar Heels has been unbelievable this year. 4th in the country in passing yards, over 3,800 yards. And then Clemson is a team, I still believe they can beat anybody, all right? That's because of DJ Uyunglele and Will Shipley. When one of them has an off night, the other one steps up. And when both of them are on, that's very scary for opposing teams' defenses. So I think you're going to see an ACC championship game that's going to be really exciting compared to past few years with lots of offense.
Nick, you've got a great smile. You can't stand there right now and tell me that Clemson, with DJ Uyunglele playing quarterback, is going to put up points. You can't.
And Will Shipley, too.
Seriously?
One or both of them will have a great day.
Well, you need both if you want to score points. And that's why I'm going with
UNC's
Utah.
run D has been Swiss cheese. I just want to put that out there.
Okay, that's fine. You need a passing game, and Utah has both a passing game and a running game. They're playing USC in the Pac-12 championship game. These two teams met in the regular season, 85 combined points. 43-42 in that contest. I don't think anybody else is outscoring those offenses. I talk about balance for Utah. 3 different players got 10 or more carries in the last game against Colorado, and then 5 different players caught 2+ passes as well. And then USC don't really have to say much. I mean, Caleb Williams is winning the Heisman. He's going to have his Heisman game, his Heisman moment in this contest. So there's going to be a lot of points in this matchup. I don't think anyone's really going to watch it because it's the Pac-12, but you'll see some offense if you do.
It might be late at night, but I think that over's hitting. I'm sorry, Nick, but I'm going with Utah and USC.
That's fine. I have 2 left.
I saw Clemson in person, and they weren't that impressive, especially with DJ. Teams that aren't in postseason play, making changes. The coaching carousel is up and running. A lot of head honchos are looking for new houses. John, which team made the best hire?
We're going Big Ten. We're from Big Ten country, so we're sticking there. And a guy in Luke Fickell who is very familiar with the Big Ten. He's going from Cincinnati to Wisconsin to rebuild the Badgers program. It's a guy who, like I said, has a lot of familiarity with the Midwest, a former OSU assistant and interim coach as well. Then he goes to Cincinnati, takes over a 4-8 team, and then goes 11-2 in 2018, gets to the college football playoff a couple years later, a 57-18 overall record at Cincinnati. That's a really tough place to play. And he's not a finesse coach. He's a tough, hard-nosed football coach, kind of like Michigan is with Jim Harbaugh, and he's all about development. 9 draft picks last year for Cincinnati. That was only behind Georgia with 15 and LSU with 10. So I love this hire for Wisconsin, unfortunately for our Wolverines, but it's a great hire.
Okay, I am sticking in the Big Ten, and I'm going with Matt Rule, all right? And I think this is because of his experience with rebuilding teams, similar to Luke Fickell, but I think he's done it at better schools. First, he did it at Temple. He rebuilt the Temple when he was there for a few years, and then he went to Baylor. He rebuilt them in 2019, took them to the Sugar Bowl. He was the Big 12 Coach of the Year. And honestly, I kind of like his fit with this program. He's going to bring back relevance to this Cornhuskers program, and I think it starts with defense. And he's a defensive-minded coach. He played defense in the Big Ten decades ago, and I think he's ready for this task in this Cornhuskers program. Give him a few years.
Nebraska's dead.
Give him a few years, and they'll be back.
I don't know. How'd it go with Carolina for him?
The thing about Nebraska, where I think Matt Rule has the advantage, There's a lot of offensive talent there. He runs a higher speed offense, and the black shirt's name still means something to NIL guys, so I'm giving it to Matt Rule. I saw in his interview with College Game Day, it looked like he was in a hurricane, but it doesn't matter. Nick gets the point, and keep in mind, this last question is worth 2, so Nick can still make a comeback. You guys just gave me big names. Former Ohio State coach, a guy that was getting paid millions not to coach Baker Mayfield. Which group of 5 coach, though, might be under the radar, takes over a big-time program next year, one we're not even thinking about, Nick?
I don't think you're thinking about Gus Malzahn. He's a name that you probably should be thinking about right now. Obviously, a name currently coaches for UCF. Obviously, he was most well-known when he coached for Auburn those seasons ago. And he's a guy who his roots run deep in Springdale, Arkansas, fun fact. And I think he's going to get back to the Power 5. And technically, yes, he will get back to the Power 5. UCF moves to the Big 12 next season. But I see bigger things for him a couple years from now after spending some time in the Big 12. I think he's going to get a call from an SEC team. Could be the Razorbacks, come back home and coach for Arkansas. I don't know how things are working out with Sam Pittman right now, but it's a possibility. But Gus Malzahn is going to make that move. Give it a few years.
I'm not so sure. Gus Malzahn's still getting paid checks, probably right now by Auburn. And now he's getting paid checks by UCF. So why would you want to go and take a bigger job when you've got money just coming in? You got to sit there, kick back, and coach one of the best teams in the American Athletic Conference year after year. Now, we're playing some NCAA 14. Jeff Traylor at UTSA, the Roadrunners, 12-2 season last year, and that wasn't just a one-hit wonder because he's 10-2 this year with that squad, 29-9 in 3 seasons with UTSA, and someone that has a lot of experience in the state of Texas, which is just an absolute football recruiting powerhouse. So no matter who picks him up over the next couple of years, they're going to get a guy who's a big asset, not just from a coaching standpoint, but a recruiting standpoint. One hurdle they do have to climb, though, is that Traylor just signed a contract through 2031 worth about $3 million per year, so a big squad's going to have to pay some big dough to get him.
Yeah. But hey, there's NIL money all over football, and people want those proven mid-major guys. I'm sorry, I think Gus Malzahn's cushy in Central Florida. I'm giving it to Eads.
Oh my.
John takes the juicer by a final score of 4-1. All right, nice sunglasses. John,
my first time
I hope you enjoy those. Nick, thank you so much for coming. We're switching to hoops after the break. Feast Week brings us the greatest of non-con matchups. We'll break down the multi-team event winners and losers after this.
Here's to the straggly ones, the first ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Hey, welcome back to No Pulp, along with Ian Unsworth. I'm John Eads. I hate to say it, Ian, but we got to take a break from football and talk some basketball because last week we had all these tournaments going on, and it was that time of the year where, you know, it's noon, it's 7 o'clock, it's midnight 30, and there's basketball on. I'm sure you were loving it.
I stayed up pretty darn late for some of these games, let me tell you.
Feast week for college basketball, so, and it was also Thanksgiving, of course. Feast or famine, that's the game we're playing. We're talking all about these preseason, early season tournaments. We're going to start with the Battle for Atlantis. That's my personal favorite. Who's your winner from that tournament?
The winner is Rick Barnes. It goes back to this old Russell Westbrook quote about Patrick Beverley. He's tricking y'all. He doesn't do anything. Rick Barnes hasn't really done anything at Tennessee. He's been there for 8 years, but all of his teams do the same thing. They play decent defense at the beginning of the season. They get a couple of nice wins. You play a Kansas team that's played 3 games in 3 days with no big man, very worn out. But Rick Barnes, his early season success does not translate. He has not made an Elite 8 in his time at Kansas. He's only made it to the Sweet 16 once. So I think Barnes is tricking people.
Well, I'm going over to the Big 12 for my loser from this tournament, and it's Kansas. This is a squad that had such big expectations coming out of the Big 12 and really just did not look good in this tournament. Yeah, you beat NC State, and that's fine and all, that's dandy, but they're one of the most mid teams that the ACC has this year. Then you barely, I mean barely, get by Wisconsin. Did you see that play on Twitter, that buzzer beater? That was unreal.
Yeah.
You needed that to get by Wisconsin, who's a pretty good team from the Big 10, I'll give you that, but I mean, that's a 1 in a million type play. And then you just get embarrassed by Tennessee in that championship game, a game where you didn't lead for a single second. So this offense just looks pretty bad, and the team as a whole looks pretty bad.
Bobby Pettiford won me a little money with his putback over Wisconsin. But let's go from one tropical vacation spot to another. We're taking it to Maui, the Lahaina Civic Center, one of the coolest college basketball venues in the nation, and also home to some of the best games. John, Arizona took the title. Who's your winner from this tournament?
A player on that Arizona team, Omar Ballo, big man transfer from Gonzaga, 6th man of the year last season in the Pac-12, and he really just made a name for himself. It's a guy that's been trying to make some headlines, and he certainly did that against Creighton. 14 of 17 from the field, 30 points, 13 rebounds, both career highs. He was the major force behind Arizona's Maui Invitational win. So this is a guy you're going to hear about the rest of the season, and he really got some likes, got some engagement, got his name out there.
My loser is Louisville, who's really bad. One of 6 winless teams in the nation down there with Monmouth, Green Bay, and Jackson State. Powers across the nation. Louisville averaged 51 points per game in Maui. They only scored 38 against Texas Tech. Kenny Payne saying he's going to rebuild this program, but right now, his faith is blind. He's the only one that believes.
I think bad would be almost a compliment to Louisville because they're even worse than that.
Awful.
Will they win a game this year?
Their only good player is L. Ellis. We saw him last year.
I love L. Ellis.
He's all right, but he's the only guy that can produce.
Great name, bad team. All right, staying on the West Coast, couple of Phil Knight tournaments, if you will. You had an Invitational and you had a Legacy. Who was your winner from the Invitational? I know there's a lot of teams going on here, so it can be confusing. So
happy 85th birthday, Mr. Phil Knight. The winner of the Invitational, UConn, also my winner because the Huskies play big boy basketball. They have Adama Sanogo, who averages 18 points per game. He was a force all 3 games in the paint. And how about the backup? Number 32 in Navy, Donovan Clingan, just a freshman, but he's made a big impact. 18 blocks through his 6 games. UConn played teams that had very different styles, and a fast-paced Alabama team, an Iowa State team that wants to grind you out, and an Oregon team that has a lot of size, a lot of length. They handled all 3, won all 3 games by double digits. UConn looks dominant in the early going.
They most certainly did, and now they're inside the top 10, one of the hottest teams in college basketball. Who's on their way down? North Carolina. They came into this tournament the #1 team in the nation. They come out of it the number 18 team in the nation. I mean, you beat Portland. That's expected. You're expected to win this tournament. And then you lose to a team in Iowa State who really isn't held in that high of regard in the Big 12. And again, you're North Carolina. You bring back so much production from last season. You cannot lose games like this early in the season. Another tough loss to Alabama as well, and just what was an absolutely wild game, 4 overtimes. But look, you're the #1 team. You need to win this tournament. Plain and simple, you didn't. You're the loser.
All right, so let's hop over just a couple of miles away to the Phil Knight Legacy Tournament. John, who's your loser? Let's start there from the Legacy side.
My loser in this is everybody but Purdue, because Purdue was absolutely dominant, and a big reason why was Zach Edey. He was unbelievable for the Boilermakers, made a big name for himself in this tournament. Every single time he came on the floor, he scored at least 20 points per game. Gonzaga, Duke, the best games that he had, and now the Boilermakers 6-0, number 5 in the polls. He was named MVP of this tournament, and it's because he brought it game after game. He's a premier big man in the nation, the Big Ten, you name it.
Talk about big names. Duke, my loser, really struggled. They got taken to the wire by Oregon State and Xavier, and then were blown out by that Purdue team. Duke is very young, very inexperienced, even with the first-year head coach in John Shire. Man, they got a lot of gelling to do. That's what happens when you recruit all these freshmen and expect them to be big.
We expected that, though, because a lot of young players, they were coming in and they just did not perform up to snuff. All right, enough about basketball. Going back to football to wrap up shop here on No Pulp. We've got our No Pulp game of the week and our final words as well. So keep it right here. No Pulp continues after the break.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
You ever heard the song Take Me Home Tonight? Well, that's what we're doing here on No Pulp. That's John Eads. I'm Ian Unsworth. Talk about taking it to the house, John. Donovan Edwards did that twice last weekend. I know you love it. I know you want to talk about it. So let's do our No Pulp Plays of the Week.
Now, you mentioned it. I mean, you know where this is going. We're Michigan guys. We're going to that Michigan-Ohio State game for the Play of the Week. OSU cuts it to one score. The Don is breaking free and he's loose. Gets by Lathan Ransom. Send a postcard, baby. 75 yards to the house. That put the game on ice. Hail to the victors. The first win in Columbus since 2000. And Donovan Edwards had everything to do with that.
So, John, I'm going to basketball because that's my season. This game tipped off pretty early. It was a 12:30 p.m. tip, and it went till about 7. 4 overtimes between Alabama and UNC in the PK 85 Legacy Tournament. There's Javon Quinterly with a heave. This team just kept on going and going. It finished 103-101 Bama. Caleb Love played 58 minutes for the Tar Heels, and Mark Spears for the Bama, 55. I'd be exhausted. But we cannot be tired when we've got our No Pulp Game of the Week to talk about.
It's time for the No Pulp Game of the Week.
No Pulp Game of the Week is the Pac-12 Championship. USC and Utah. The Trojans probably got to win to get in the playoff.
Yeah, and if USC wins, they're in. It's as simple as that. If they lose, you got Bama, you got Tennessee, you got Ohio State, even LSU potentially, all hanging around. So you want to get in the playoff? Go
Take
win.
an advantage for USC. No Tavion Thomas for Utah. He opted out with an injury. He's getting ready for the NFL draft, so a little less run power for the Utes. All right, final thoughts, so I'll kick it off. We've got new teams at the top of college basketball. There's only one traditional blue blood in the top 10. That's Kansas at the 10 spot. Duke, UNC, Kentucky, MSU, UCLA, all with 2 losses. Teams at the top now, Houston, Virginia, Texas. The common themes between them, they all play lockdown defense, and they're all experienced. The Cavs, 5 starters back. That's a recipe for success.
Well, another team that has a lot of experience and plays lockdown defense is Michigan football. But my final word is this. The college football playoff cannot expand. We've recapped a lot of high-intensity, big stakes games today. We've even previewed some more. But, you know, if you want to live in a society where you get second chances to make up for mistakes, then you can have the expanded college football playoff. Personally, I don't want it. We're not throwing Ohio State a bone for losing in its own barn. We're not giving LSU a second chance because they beat Alabama. And we're most certainly not giving teams that don't deserve to get into the playoff another chance to go to the Final Four. So if you want the beautiful, tradition-rich game of college football to stay beautiful and tradition-rich, do not expand the playoff. Keep it at 4 teams.
You might have Tulane. You might have a MAC team in Ohio in the playoff. It would be kind of wacky if you bump that out. It's going to 12 soon, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That'll wrap things up for us here in the CitrusTV studios with John Eads, our executive producer, Ben Spector, and everyone else behind the scenes. I'm Ian Unsworth. If you missed anything from tonight's show, you can check it out on the CitrusTV YouTube channel. Thanks for sticking around with us. Enjoy the championships.